This is a 2012 Jeep Liberty four-wheel drive that we're going to be putting a wheel bearing on today. It came in because it made a noise going around corners. Only going around curves a certain way the wheel bearing will sound off. And it's not loose, the bearing is still tight. There's no movement, there's no play at all in it. But I lifted it up in the air with the driver in the driver's seat, put it in four-wheel drive, shut off the traction control, and ran the tires up to about 40 miles an hour. And I used a pry bar, and I stuck it on the steering knuckle, and I put it up against my ear on this side, and I went back and forth between the two sides. And the passenger side is definitely the side where the noise is coming from. So let's go ahead and get started. The lug nuts on this particular vehicle are all 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter. Okay, I'm going to pry back this caliper to give me a little bit of space so that I can sneak the brake pads back over the rust ridges on the rotor without having to take the caliper off of the caliper bracket. It just saves a little bit of time, and you don't need very much space. Just enough to loosen it up, and that'll do the trick. There's two 21 millimeter bolts that attach the caliper bracket to the steering knuckle, and here's one right here, and then the other one's up here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull those out of there. Now before I pull the caliper off here, I'm going to pull a couple of these clips apart. These clips hold the wire for the speed sensor to the hose for the caliper. I'm just going to pull them apart because this wire is all going to come out anyway, because the new bearing assembly comes with a whole new... There we go. Get that out of the way. Okay. A little bit of play in that bearing after all. I was wrong. The bearing is loose. Let's see if you can see this here. I didn't feel it when everything was put together, but now that I've got it just down to the rotor's held on right now with rust and corrosion, and the rotor is not moving on the hub. I don't know if you can hear that. You can't see it, but you can hear it for sure. So we know we're on the right track. Let's get that rotor off there. If ever I'm going to save a rotor and try to reuse it, you don't want to smack it on the backside on the braking surface with a hammer, because you're going to put indentations and whatnot. You could possibly crack it, but typically you're just going to put a bunch of dings and dents in it. Hit it right here on the edge with your hammer, like so, like I did, and what it does is it actually flexes the rotor just enough to pop that loose and get it out of your way. Okay, there's 3 bolts that secure this in. Let me move you for a better view here. I'm not sure if you can see that or not, but on the back side here, there's 3 bolts. There's one up top right here. There's one here. Oh, they look like 18 millimeter. And then there's one on the other side, and that's what holds the bearing in the vehicle. Due to the diameter of the the axle shaft right here, I'm going to have to pull this nut loose before I take these bolts out that secure the hub into the steering knuckle. The reason for that is I need to create a little bit of a void so I can actually get a socket in there, because right now with the axle being shoved all the way in there, the size of the diameter prevents me from doing that. So I'll take this nut off here and I'll drive the axle back. Should create a void big enough to get a socket in there. I'm going to move you around to the front. The nut is 36 millimeter on this vehicle, and look at that. This is a 2012. I think it has just over 100,000 miles. Look at the amount of rust on that. What's up with that? I see this more on, well, I see it on everything here in northern Michigan, but I see this more on Chrysler vehicles than anything else. And sometimes it'll look so terrible, you'll think there's no way there's going to be any threads left when I pull that nut off, but there always are. But most cases there are. But like I said, I see that more on Chryslers than anything else. Throw a little penetrating oil in there, rock her back and forth, just like a stuck pickup truck. Threads. It's amazing. Now that the nut is out of the way, I'm going to take my air hammer with a pointed bit here, and I'm going to put it right in that divot on that axle and drive that axle back so that I have room to get at the 3 bolts that secure that hub into the steering knuckle. Okay, let me move you here for a different view. Okay, with the axle pushed back, I should have enough room now to get a socket on these 2 bolts, and then I'll turn the knuckle, or I'll go turn the other tire, and I'll be able to get the other one on the other side. And I believe those are 18 millimeter. Let's see if we can get the 1/2-inch socket on it. Alright, there's one. Might not be able to get this one in there. There's 2. One more. I always leave the steering wheel unlocked when I'm doing a wheel bearing, just because it makes it so much easier than having to pop a tie rod end loose and have the thing spin. Sometimes the nut gets hung up, and then the shaft actually spins, breaks the taper, and causes a headache. A lot easier just to leave the steering unlocked. Okay, there's the third one now. Okay, I got all the bolts out of it. I'm gonna disconnect the wiring. You follow the wiring, comes out right here out of the speed sensor, runs up through here, and right here on the back side is my connector. So I'm just gonna push that out of there. Maybe. Alright. Sometimes they get a little bit of sand in them and they don't want to come apart real easy. Okay. Now what I like to do is I like to put the nut back on and tighten it up. And I explained in one of my other videos why I do that. Sometimes it basically holds the wheel bearing together. I've had times in the past where I've hit on it after I took the nut off, and the actual spindle here pulls right out of the hub assembly, and then it's a lot harder to get it off then. It's a lot easier if you just take the time. And because these threads are all screwed up, I'm going to put a little something on there to make it easier. How you torque that nut. Usually you go back and forth a couple times on each side and walk it right out of there. There. Okay, bearings out. I don't want to separate the axle, so I'm going to take that nut off, push the axle shaft back through the hub. That's it. Always remember the orientation of your backing plate. Always. Pay attention to how it comes apart, because you can put it back together wrong. And if you put it back together wrong, when you go to put your rotor's going to rub on it and you're going to be mad at yourself. I always like to clean the corrosion off the aluminum so that the new hub will sit flat. Don't ever go crazy on it, just enough until you got shiny metal all the way around. This is soft, this is aluminum, and you can eat into it and cause it to sit crooked. I always like to goober it up with anti-seize. You saw how hard that shaft was to move inside that bearing. This will hopefully prevent it from getting that seized in there again. Okay, I've got the new bearing here. I fed it through the backing plate. You can see there's a little provision made for that speed sensor. Make sure you clock it correctly. Pull that wire up here so that it doesn't get pinched. Always try to start these nuts by hand, or these bolts by hand, because you don't want to cross thread them. It's just a bugger to get to. You don't want to just run the first one down that you get started. Take your time, start them, run them in a little bit at a time until the bearing is sucking in flat. probably have better luck with the smaller socket and the smaller gun. So. Okay, we're going to go ahead and hook our electrical back up. If you remember, it was ran like this right here, over the top, and through this. And secured up here. Like that. Okay. Let me straighten this back out. Make sure your dust shield is, or your splash shield isn't sticking out. Sometimes when you're banging the flange here to pull the wheel bearing out, you'll hit it and you'll bend it, and then when you put your rotor on and you get everything all done and you go to back it out of the garage, it makes this god-awful screeching sound, and a lot of times it can be alleviated by coming in with a screwdriver through the wheel or whatever and pushing it back, but these get real rusty and then they start to get weak, and it doesn't take much at all to bend them in, and you won't even realize you did it until you back it out. Okay, let's before I do that, I'm going to torque it down. I'm going to pause you for a second while I go look up the torque spec on this vehicle. I'm going to snug this nut up by hand, and then I've got the torque wrench set to specs, and I'll torque it down and we'll put the brakes back together. Don't run this down with a gun. That is absolutely the incorrect way of doing that. It only takes a couple minutes to use a torque wrench and do it the right way, and then you won't have to do it twice. Okay. Alright, put the brake rotor back on. Move it back and forth just to make sure, with pressing it all the way against the flange, make sure that there's no noise from the brake rotor making contact with the dust shield or vice versa. And there's not. So let's go ahead and put the brakes back on. Again, start these by hand, don't start them with the gun. tools are falling apart. Had a tool failure here. The spring fell off and it allowed the pin to fall out. So now the ball is spinning in the socket. So I'm going to have to find that pin that just fell out and put that screw back on. It's kind of neat to see how they're made. That's probably why I have so many of them. Okay, now I just want to clip the new wire back into the brake line in the same clips that are on it, and each one of these little corresponding bushings that fit right in there. I know you can't see it, but it's pretty much self-explanatory. Okay, I'm going to put the tire back on it and go take it for a test drive. I hope this video was informative in some way to someone, and if it was, give me a thumbs up. If you hated it, give me a thumbs down. Have a good day. Thanks for watching.